I can still picture that night like it was yesterday. My wife was dead set on having her coworkers and their partners over for dinner, saying it was all about building connections and networking. I put in a ton of effort getting everything ready, scrubbing the house top to bottom, whipping up a fancy 3-course meal, and double-checking the wine was chilled just right. Honestly, I was determined to make a good impression, to show her I could step up and make her proud. Things kicked off pretty smoothly, with everyone chatting casually over some appetizers. They seemed to be having a good time, tossing out compliments about the food and the vibe of the place. I started to loosen up a bit, thinking maybe this whole thing wouldn't be a disaster after all. But then, out of nowhere, the night took a sharp turn I never saw coming. By this point, my wife was on her 3rd glass of wine, and somehow the talk around the table drifted to relationships. She shot me this look, a smirk I've learned means trouble, before turning to her colleagues with a gleam in her eye. "You want to hear something hilarious?" she said, her voice a notch too loud, like she wanted everyone's attention. "When we first got together, I figured he'd be the total package, tall, successful, impressive in every way, if you catch my drift." She dragged out that last bit with a dramatic wink that made my stomach twist. One of the husbands at the table piped up with a grin, "So, he's not." The whole group burst into laughter, assuming it was just harmless teasing between a husband and wife. "Well, let's put it this way," she replied, holding up her hand and pinching her thumb and finger so close together there was hardly a gap, "some stuff just doesn't live up to the hype." The table exploded with laughs, and I could feel my cheeks burning, too embarrassed to meet anyone's gaze, but she wasn't done yet. "Seriously, it's like I'm married to a kid sometimes, all eager to get going, but over before you even blink, if you get what I'm saying." The laughter kept coming as she added, "I swear, there are nights I think I should get him a high chair just to sit at the table." One of her female coworkers tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, probably picking up on how uncomfortable I was, but my wife just wouldn't let it go. "Nah, it's all good, really. We've all got our burdens to carry, mine just happens to be a little underwhelming." She lifted her glass in a fake toast, and everyone awkwardly joined in, the air now heavy with tension you could cut with a knife. I just sat there, completely stuck, my plate of food sitting untouched while the talk finally shifted to something else. But the damage was already done. I could see it in their faces, pity, secondhand embarrassment, that kind of look you can't shake once it's there. My pride, my self-respect, my sense of being a man, it all got torn apart right there at my own dinner table, turned into a punchline. What stung the most wasn't even the public humiliation, it was realizing that the one person who's supposed to have my back, my life partner, thought so little of me that she dragged my deepest insecurities out for laughs over dinner. I somehow made it through the rest of the night on autopilot, clearing dishes, topping off drinks, plastering on a fake smile when I had to. But deep down, something was cracking, something core to how I viewed my marriage, my wife, and even myself was starting to shift. Once the guests were gone, she acted like nothing had even happened. When I tried to bring it up, she just brushed me off completely. "Come on, don't be so serious. It was just a little joke. Everyone pokes fun at their spouse like that. You're overreacting, honestly." That night, while she slept like a baby next to me, I couldn't close my eyes, just staring into the dark. Her words kept looping in my head, over and over. It wasn't the first time she'd made cracks about my height or how I am in the bedroom, but it was the first time she'd done it so openly, so intentionally, in front of a crowd. I had no idea then, but that dinner party would end up being the moment that finally made me see our relationship for what it really was. Sometimes, getting humiliated like that turns out to be the wake-up call you didn't even know you were waiting for. That dinner party wasn't just a one-off disaster. Lying awake that night, my mind was swamped with memories, a steady drip of little jabs that had been draining my confidence bit by bit over the 8 years we'd been together. Early on, her remarks were sneaky, often wrapped up as humor or well-meaning advice. "Hey, why don't you try some boots with a thicker sole?" she'd suggest before we headed to events with her work crowd. "It could make you seem more commanding, you know." I just chuckle, figuring she was only trying to help out. Then there were the comments about our intimate life. What began as pointers soon morphed into straight-up criticism. "That's all," she'd say, her face showing clear letdown. "Done already?" Or even worse, she'd let out a heavy sigh, roll over, and mutter, "It's fine, I'm used to this by now." Every time, I'd push myself harder to make her happy, only to be met with more letdowns, more sighs, more quiet head shakes that cut deeper than words. 3 years back, when I got a promotion at work, it should have been a moment to celebrate. But when I broke the news about my new senior role, beaming with pride, she just shrugged and said, "That's cool. Guess they didn't have a lot of choices this time around." Then, without missing a beat, she switched gears to talk about her own career wins. I can still see myself standing there in the kitchen, the unopened champagne bottle on the counter, while she went on about herself for a solid 40 minutes. Family get-togethers turned into another minefield. She'd introduce me to far-off relatives with a pat on my shoulder, saying stuff like, "Meet my husband. He's not quite what I pictured when I daydreamed about marriage as a kid, but we get by, don't we, sweetie?" All with that flawless smile that fooled everyone into thinking she was just being cute and loving. Even shopping for clothes became a gauntlet. She'd pick up smaller sizes in stores and say, right in front of the staff, "One day, maybe, huh?" If I tried on something I actually liked, she'd give a little frown and go, "It's okay if that's your pick, but it doesn't really help your look much." My hobbies didn't escape her either. When I started guitar lessons, something I'd always dreamed of doing, she cracked up and told her friends over the phone, "It's adorable. His hands are too small to hit some chords right, but he gives it his all." I quit after just 3 months. The pattern that stuck out most was how she'd lift me up when we were alone, only to knock me down hard in front of others. She'd tell me I looked sharp while we got dressed for a night out, then later announce to the crowd how she had to pick my outfit because I dressed like a teenager who can't see colors right. She'd rave about a dish I made at home, then tell dinner guests I was still figuring out the basics in the kitchen. Our trips were the same old story. She'd rip into my planning, my sense of direction, my restaurant picks, all while posting perfect couple vibes online for everyone to see. The gap between her social media version of us and the real deal was downright shocking. The night after that awful dinner party, I was scrolling through her Instagram and saw she'd posted pics from the evening, unforgettable dinner with awesome friends and my incredible husband who pulled it all together. The comments were packed with heart emojis and people gushing relationship goals. That's when it really sank in. I was trapped in 2 completely different marriages, the shiny one she showed the world and the hidden one where I was always made to feel like I fell short. As the morning sun started creeping through the bedroom curtains, it hit me with brutal clarity. This wasn't love, this was abuse, and it had been going on for years. That realization flipped a switch deep inside me, changing how I saw everything. For the first time, I started noticing stuff I'd brushed off before, like how guarded she was with her phone, always flipping it face down the second I walked in, or how she'd slip outside for certain calls, saying it was just work stuff, even at 10 p.m. On a weekend that a couple of days after that disastrous dinner party, she left her phone sitting on the kitchen counter while she hopped in the shower. It kept buzzing over and over with new messages popping up. I'd never been the type to snoop. Trust always mattered to me, even if I was the only one holding up that end of the bargain, but something pushed me to take a peek this time. The lock screen showed texts from a contact labeled Work Project Lead. 3 previews flashed up, "Already missing you, last night was unreal," and "When can you sneak away next?" My hands were shaking as I grabbed her phone. By some cruel twist of fate, she hadn't bothered to update her password since we set up each other's devices way back when. I pulled up the message thread, and the whole room seemed to tilt under my feet. There were hundreds of texts going back months, graphic pictures, detailed stories of hotel hookups, and plans for their next meetup. The latest exchange was about dinner plans for tomorrow night, with her apparently telling him I'd be stuck at work late, which was complete news to me since no one had mentioned it. But what really gutted me were the texts where they talked about me like I was some kind of joke. "He's clueless," she'd typed. "Too wrapped up in trying to make me happy to see what's right in front of him." Her lover had asked if she ever felt bad about it, and she shot back, for what, finally being with a real man. He ought to be grateful I've stuck around this long. I kept scrolling, landing on messages from the night of the dinner party. He just sits there and eats it up, she wrote. I basically called him small and useless in front of the whole table, and he still dished out dessert with a grin. It's almost pathetic how easy it is. Her lover replied, that's 'cause he knows he'll never find anyone better than you. I put the phone back exactly where it was and moved like a robot to our home office. I started digging through our shared accounts, pulling up credit card bills and phone logs. The proof stacked up fast: random hotel charges, dinners at places I'd never stepped foot in on nights we were supposedly together, and work conferences, on weekends that her company never even held. This affair had been going on for at least 7 months with a guy from her office, not some project lead, but a colleague at her same level, whose wife had been sitting right across from me at our dinner table, just as in the dark as I was. I printed out the damning stuff, statements, screenshots, and stashed them in a folder for safekeeping. Then I dialed up my best buddy, asking if I could crash at his place for a few days. That same afternoon, I got in touch with a lawyer to start figuring out my next steps. That night, I played it cool as if nothing was wrong. I asked how her day went, cooked us dinner, even suggested we watch her favorite show, all while that folder sat tucked away in my briefcase by the front door, and all while she sat next to me on the couch, texting him with a little smirk on her face. Something good happening at work? I tossed out casually. Just a project falling into place, she answered, not even glancing up from her screen. Nothing you'd get anyway. I just nodded, took a sip of my wine, and stared at her face, this woman I'd built a life with for 8 years, who'd spent that time tearing me down while cheating on me in the worst way imaginable. I love you, I said, just to see how it felt coming out of my mouth. She barely looked up, muttering, love you too, before her eyes went right back to her phone. That automatic, hollow exchange made everything click into place. I wasn't just being put down and ridiculed, I was being straight up lied to by someone who didn't truly care about me. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt something new stirring inside, not sadness, not even rage, but a sharp, clear determination. It was time to stop pretending and face this head-on. The next day, I got to work putting everything in order. I moved half the money from our joint accounts into a new personal one under my name. I called my lawyer again to lock down our game plan. I even took the afternoon off to haul some of my essential stuff over to my friend's place while she was at her office. Everything was lined up for the showdown I knew couldn't be avoided. That night, I cooked up her favorite meal, salmon paired with roasted veggies and a nice bottle of white wine. When she got home, she seemed caught off guard by the romantic setup on the table. What's all this for? She asked, dropping her keys on the counter with a clink. Just felt like treating you to something special, I said, pouring her a glass of wine. How'd your day go? Hectic, stressful, same old stuff, she answered, glancing at her phone again, probably texting him, before taking a seat. We ate mostly in quiet until I broke the silence. There's something serious we need to discuss. She let out an exaggerated sigh. Can't this wait? I'm wiped out. No, it really can't, I said firmly, setting the folder down on the table between us. I found out about the affair. Her face went through a whirlwind of emotions, shock, denial, a quick calculation, before landing on anger. What on earth are you talking about? I flipped open the folder and started laying out the proof, one by one, hotel receipts, screenshots of her texts, restaurant charges, phone logs. You snooped through my phone, she shot back, trying to turn the tables. That's such a violation of my privacy. Yeah, I did, I admitted, keeping my voice steady. After years of your emotional jabs and public shaming, I finally trusted my gut. She let out a disbelieving laugh. Emotional jabs? Are you kidding me? I've been there for you through everything. You've torn me down every chance you got, I fired back. You've ridiculed my height, my performance in the bedroom, my job, all while cheating on me behind my back. In a flash, her tactic changed, tears welled up in her eyes. I messed up, okay? It didn't mean a thing. We can fix this together. The affair is only part of why this marriage is done, I said, staying calm. Even without it, I wouldn't stick around with someone who looks down on me like you do. She reached for my hand across the table, but I pulled away. You don't get it, she begged. Work has been so intense. He was just there. It was a stupid lapse in judgment. 7 months of lapses, I corrected, not to mention the things you've said about me. Just like that, her tears dried up, replaced by icy rage. Alright, you want the real story? Fine, I've been miserable. What did you think would happen? You've never been enough for me, not with money, not with feelings, not in bed. I nodded, almost glad to hear her true thoughts out loud at last. That's exactly why I'm walking away. I deserve more than someone who views me like that. You, she sneered. More than me. Good luck finding anyone who'll deal with all your shortcomings. She waved a hand at me, like she was dismissing my whole existence. But in that moment, staring at her gorgeous face contorted with spite, I felt an odd calm wash over me. This woman had never truly cared for me, she only got off on controlling me, on cutting me down. I've already talked to a lawyer, I told her. The divorce papers will be ready by tomorrow. I'll be staying somewhere else until everything's settled. Her face shifted again, panic creeping through the disdain. You can't mean that. Where are you even gonna go? What'll everyone say? I'm done worrying about what people think, I said, getting to my feet. That was always your hang-up, not mine. As I headed for the door, she hurried after me, grabbing my arm. Hold on, we've gotta talk this out. You can't just toss away 8 years like this. I carefully pried her hand off. You're the one who threw them away, every cruel word, every lie, every betrayal chipped away at it. For the first time in our whole marriage, I saw something different in her eyes, respect, not love or warmth, but a stunned realization that I wasn't under her thumb anymore. You're gonna regret this, she hissed under her breath. You'll never find another woman like me. I gave her a real, honest smile. That's exactly what I'm banking on. That night, I left our house with nothing but a suitcase and my laptop slung over my shoulder. The crisp evening breeze hit my face, and it felt like pure freedom washing over me. My buddy was parked at the end of the block, waiting in his car. I'd planned every detail down to the second. She trailed me out to the porch, her tone flipping between fury and desperation. What, you think this is some big dramatic scene? She yelled. You think you're proving a point? Get your ass back in here. I didn't stop, didn't even glance over my shoulder. Her voice softened, taking on a pleading edge. Please, she called out, quieter now. I'm sorry. We can make this right. I'll go to counseling. I'll do anything you ask. For a split second, my feet hesitated, 8 years of routine almost dragging me back into her pull. But then my phone vibrated with a text, sent to both of us from her lover. Everything all right? You're not picking up my calls. She must have figured out I had his contact. Her frustrated scream rang out down the street as I made it to my friend's car. She doesn't look too thrilled, my friend noted as we pulled away. She's not used to being the one who's not in charge, I shot back. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of getting stuff done. My lawyer rushed through the divorce paperwork. I set up new bank accounts in my name. I hired a moving company to grab the rest of my things while she was at her job. I even found a little apartment and locked in a 6-month lease. All the while, my phone wouldn't quit buzzing. Her texts came in floods, first furious, then begging, then full of threats, then trying to negotiate. She showed up at my workplace, making a spectacle that only cemented my choice to leave. She even sent her sister to reason with me, but that flopped when her sister, after hearing the whole ugly story, quietly told me she got why I was doing this. On the fourth day, I went back to the house with a police escort to pick up some personal stuff I didn't trust the movers with, old family pictures, keepsakes from my folks, and important papers. She was there waiting, her eyes swollen and red. "You seriously brought the cops to deal with me," she spat as I stepped inside. "I'm only here to get my things," I said, brushing past her toward what used to be our bedroom, now just hers. She shadowed me, staying quiet as I gathered the last pieces of my life before her. "What about all the good memories?" she finally asked. "You're just gonna trash everything we had?" I stopped for a moment, thinking hard about how to respond. "No, you trashed it when you decided I wasn't good enough." "I never said, you didn't need to say it. You made it clear every single day in 1,000 little ways." For once, she didn't have a comeback. She stood in the doorway, looking smaller somehow, as I hauled my box toward the front door. As I got to the doorstep, she tried one last angle. "Your name's still on the mortgage," she pointed out. "You're still on the hook for half." I gave a nod. "The lawyer will handle that. Sell the place if you have to." "I can't manage it on my own," she confessed, a crack of real vulnerability showing through her tough exterior. "That's not my burden to carry anymore." Her face twisted with a flicker of that familiar scorn. "This is exactly why I needed someone else. You're too spineless to even fight for what we built." I took a long, hard look at her, one final time. In that instant, I saw her for real, not the perfect woman I'd idolized, not the vicious manipulator I'd come to know lately, but just a broken, insecure person who propped herself up by dragging others down. "I'm not fighting for something that only causes me pain," I said plainly. "That's not being weak, that's knowing my worth." I shut the door behind me, and as it clicked closed, her first real sob broke through, raw, messy, and oddly gratifying. The sound trailed after me down the path, unfiltered and intense. In the police officer's car, I let out a full breath, maybe the first real one in years. My phone buzzed again with her call coming through. I powered it off. "Everything okay?" the officer asked. "Getting there," I answered, watching the house grow smaller in the side mirror as we drove off. 6 months can turn your whole world upside down in the best way. The divorce wrapped up quicker than I thought it would. Once she saw I wasn't coming back, she didn't even fight it. The house sold in a snap, and after we split the money, I had just enough to put a down payment on a small, sleek condo right in the heart of downtown, a short walk from my office. That first month on my own was rough, no doubt about it. I'd wake up instinctively reaching for someone who wasn't there, my brain taking a second to catch up with reality. But bit by bit, those moments started fading. I signed up for a gym membership, not to get ripped or prove a point, but just to feel a little tougher inside and out. I began seeing a therapist, digging into years of quiet manipulation I'd let slide as normal. At work, I dove headfirst into a big project that used to scare me off. Without her voice nagging in my head that I wasn't up to the task, I crushed it. 3 months after I moved out, I landed the promotion I'd been too unsure to chase while we were together. I got back in touch with old friends she'd slowly nudged out of my life over the years. I picked up guitar lessons again, strumming away without a care. I started cooking dishes I loved, not stressing over her picky comments. All these little bits of independence piled up into a brand new life, one shaped by what I wanted and needed, not by someone else's stamp of approval. I wasn't planning to jump into dating anytime soon, but about 4 months after the split, I met someone at a corporate event for a client. She was the project manager for their team, smart, straightforward, and truly warm. We hit it off right away, talking like we'd known each other forever, and when she suggested grabbing coffee the next week, I caught myself saying yes without a second thought. That coffee turned into a dinner date, then weekend hikes, and before I knew it, more. She never made me feel small or less than. The first time we got close, I tensed up, expecting criticism or some comparison to creep in. But instead, she was right there with me, open and honest, and afterward, she pulled me in tight and murmured, "That was amazing." Just 3 little words, but they patched up hurts I didn't even know were still raw. Then came the day I'd been quietly dreading in the back of my mind. My buddy was tying the knot, and the reception was at a fancy restaurant, the kind of spot where local professionals often mingled. I knew there was a good chance I'd run into my ex-wife there. I showed up with my new partner on my arm, feeling sharp in my tailored suit and solid about the life I'd pieced back together. About an hour into the reception, while we were cracking up with some friends, I sensed a familiar vibe. Across the room, my ex-wife was standing there, eyes locked on us. She looked skinnier, dressed to the nines more than usual, like she was trying hard to put on a flawless front. Our gazes crossed for a moment. I gave a small, polite nod and went right back to chatting, not skipping a beat. Later, while my partner and I were swaying on the dance floor, my ex walked over. "You look good," she said, her tone clipped and tense. "Thanks. You do too," I replied, keeping it short and simple. An uneasy quiet hung between us, loaded with all the stuff neither of us would dare say in a crowd. "I heard about your promotion," she said after a pause. "Congrats. Appreciate it." She cast a quick look toward my partner, who had stepped away to grab us some drinks. "She looks like a good person," she remarked. "She really is," I agreed. "In every way." Another silence settled in. It felt like she was fishing for something, maybe for me to ask how she's been, or to show some sign that I still cared about her. I didn't give her either. "Anyway," she said after a moment, "I should head back to my seat." I gave a small nod, noticing she was sitting by herself at a table full of paired-up folks. As she started to walk away, she turned back briefly and added, "For what it's worth, I really am sorry for all of it. 6 months back, hearing that would have meant everything to me. Now, it was just a string of empty syllables. I hope you figure out what you're searching for," I told her, meaning every word. My partner came back, handing me a glass. "Was that?" "Yeah, it was," I answered. "But that part of my life is done for good." She gave my hand a gentle squeeze, understanding without me needing to say more, and we went back to hanging out with our friends. Later that night, as we were heading out of the reception, I caught one final glimpse of my ex-wife. She was across the room, her eyes on us, wearing a complicated look as she watched me crack up at something my partner said. Right then, it hit me, my best revenge wasn't something I schemed or fought for, it was just living a good life, free from the weight of her influence. I stepped outside with my head held high, my fingers laced with someone who truly saw my worth. No big showdown, no bitter words, just the understated victory of crafting a life that was truly, completely my own.